Okay, picking up where we left off, we're changing the transparency of this thing so it'll overlay. And I mentioned there's two places where transparency takes place. One is actual the data itself, and actually the background. So I'm going to click on the chart. By the way, if you randomly click on places in here, you can see one's called the plot area and one's called the chart area. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and format, and I'm going to solid. I go to 100% transparent. And automatically you can see what's going on. The next thing I need to do is to make these go away. So format the data series, fill color, solid, and transparency. Woohoo! Okay, now if I line this guy up exactly on here, he's not going to work. And the reason is, for some reason, when we added the data labels, the donut actually shrunk in size. I have no idea why this occurred, but it just did. So to combat that, I'm going to change the shape of the size of this guy. So I'm going to go back in here. Remember we had it exactly at 3. Now I'm going to make it 3.4 by 3.4. Why? Because I've done this before and I know how big that thing's supposed to be. Okay? So just trust me. Now I'm going to line this guy up, and I'm trying to eyeball it a little bit. It's not going to be perfect, but it's close. Okay. Now I need the text to be a lot bigger, because here, I mean, it's got that drop shadow and much, much bigger. So I'm going to click on the actual data, and you can just go here and click this guy, do these kinds of things. So maybe 14 point with bold on it. That looks pretty good. Hey, it looks good to me. Now we need to add the drop shadow part. Okay. So to do the drop shadow, I have to click on the data series, and I'm having trouble clicking. Oh, there you go. I don't want to click on the text. I want to click on the series. Okay. So format, and then there's a thing called glow and soft edges. And the preset is right. I mean, I want glow. I want a glow in white. I want it 10 point and about 50% transparent. So 10 point and 50% transparent, and let's see what that looks like. And it didn't change a darn thing. Let's try that again. One more time. Whoop, whoop, whoop. 10 point. And 50%. And I want it white. And that ain't working with a flip. Huh. I don't have a clue why that is. Give me a second to figure it out. I have no idea why I can't make the format data labels glow thing work. I go ahead and just pick one. It just ignores me. So, don't know why, but let's move on. Okay, so now I basically have two charts on top of each other. And next thing I will do is we're going to add a third chart type. And that's going to be the needle that goes through, okay? Now, there's an awful lot of weird math that has to happen to make this thing work. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to start with, I don't know, we'll call this the, we'll call it needle. All right. So I need lots of data to be able to figure out how to make this thing work. Because remember, 0 starts down here and goes all the way to 100%. So it's almost like our needle is doing 100. So a couple of things that I need. I need something that'll tell me, for example, what the value is. And then I'm going to have to know what the max and the min for this thing is. So min and max. Well, the min and max should be obviously the min is a minus 30, and the max is a 30. The value is whatever you're currently doing. Let's just make it 0 to start with, so the needle will be pointing straight up and down. All right, so that's our beginning values. Okay, the next thing we need to figure out is how to make this thing cropped. Remember we talked about I don't want the needle to go beyond minus 30 and beyond positive 30. So I have to have a way to make sure this thing works. And we're just going to use just a normal if statement, just like everything else. So it'd be something like, so if the value, this guy, is less than the minimum, then it is the minimum. Okay? So if it's less than the minimum, just stop at the minimum. Okay? That's one of the ifs. Okay? Otherwise, I'll do it again. If the value is greater than the maximum, use the maximum, which would be this guy. Otherwise, use the value. I know it looks a little complex, so I'll hold it up on the screen long enough for you to do a screen capture so you can do this in your homework assignment. But I'm testing to see if it's less than the minimum, use the minimum. If it's greater than the maximum, use the maximum. It's okay, cool. So we're good. I doggone it. Oh, I forgot to put a parenthesis. That's it. It fixed it for me. Thank you. Okay, so I've cropped that value. So if I put in here 100, it's going to say 30. Okay, if I put in minus 45, it's going to say minus 30. So it did what it's supposed to do. Anywhere in between, it's going to use just that number. Cool? All right. So far so good. We've got it cropped. Now we need to figure out, since this is 100%, right, I need to figure out what the multiplication factor is. Some sort of a multiplier. So the multiplier is going to be, this goes from minus 30 to 30, and on my scale, that's 100. All right, so this would be equal to 100 divided by the max minus the min. So max minus the min. Now doing this way in formulas, because if you do it this way and you go in next time you want it to be minus 50 to 50 or you want 0 to 100, you know, this formula is going to work for you every single time. So that's the multiplication factor. That's how to take a value. Like if I said 5, you're going to have to multiply it times 1.6 to be able to find out where that fits on that scale. Because my scale is not 0 to 100 because it's minus 30 to plus 30, and that ain't 100. Okay, cool. So that's my multiplication factor. Now thickness is going to be the thickness of the needle itself, and I'm just going to pick a value. I'm going to pick 2 just because we'll see what 2 looks like. If you don't like 2, we can change it. Okay, so that's just the thickness of the needle. All right, now here's where it gets a little tricky. What I want to do is I want to figure out where the start of my data is, where the ending of my data is, and then I have to have my pie chart. It's just going to have one tiny little segment. What I'm basically building is a pie chart that has one tiny little slice. Okay, all the rest of this. So this has to be the start value. The start value starts right here and goes to there. The thickness, and then all the rest of this is sort of like filler. Okay, so there's 3 pieces in my pie. This piece, you can't, well, actually, if I click on this, you can see it. There you go. So this is one piece. That's the thickness, and then that's the filler piece. Okay, cool. So I need thickness, end, and filler. Now, the end piece is easy because that's just the thickness of this guy. Kind of simple. All right. The start piece, okay, I'll admit this is mathematically a little tough. So just bear with me for a second. What I want to be able to do is I have my multiplication factor. I've got that part. But what I need to do is I need to figure out what is the difference between my 0 and their 0, okay? So I'm going to take my number. Let's just start. I'm going to take my my cropped value, because I'm only using cropped values now. So that would be this guy, minus the minimum, okay? So this will get me back to kind of sort of normal, all right? I have to minus the minimum because otherwise 0 will be over here, so I have to make that much difference, okay? You know, 0 in my case is straight up and down. It's not pegged over here. It's straight up and down, so I have to make up for that difference. Okay, times the multiplication factor, because, okay, so now we got that part. But then I have to subtract off the thickness of the needle itself. And I'll admit, I'm being a little anal here. But I'm going to take half the thickness. Because, you know, if you made this thing a thickness of 4, do you want I want the middle of the needle to point to the value. So I'm taking the thickness and divided by 4. And once again, I'm holding this up on the screen long enough for you to take a screen capture if you wanted. Okay, so in this particular case, it came out 49, which is exactly right. Think about it. If this behind the scenes, if this is 0 and that is 100 behind the scenes, and my needle is at straight up and down, and the thickness of the needle is 2. So 49 as the starting position, so it'd be 49, 50, and 51, right? So it's exactly pointing straight up and down. Okay, cool. All right, now the filler is going to be kind of simple. It's going to be 150 minus whatever the heck those two values are. So minus that, minus that. Okay. Whew. All right. And again, the sum of these numbers should be 150, and it is. Okay, cool. Okay, now I know that was a little tedious, and maybe you've been paying attention, and maybe you stopped the video to make this thing make a little bit more sense. I don't know for sure. Okay, so now what I would do is I would do a pie chart with just these pieces right here. That's the only pieces. All the rest of that was just math that gets me to this point. Okay? All right. Now we're going to do a pie chart. Okay, so we light up that data. I insert. This time I don't want a donut. I want a regular plain old pie chart. Okay, just a plain old pie chart. Nothing fancy here. Okay, there's my pie chart. Cool? All right. So once again, I'm going to get rid of this, and I want to resize this guy. And I want it to size exactly inside this guy, and so I'm going to cheat and just tell you what the answer is. So I'm going to go to size, and we're just going to make this one 2.4 inches by 2.4 inches. You could do this yourself by trial and error, but why? Okay. So I've got that. Now you might notice that, of course, it needs to be rotated again because their 0 is at the top and my 0 is 240 degrees. Okay. So we're going to click on this guy. We're going to go to Format Series. I'm going to put in here 240. Okay. Now the needle is pointing straight up and down. All right. Cool. Now we go and individually change these guys. So this I want to be, remember, one click selects all of them and the second click selects just the one. Okay, cool. Format the data point, go to fill, go to solid, go to transparency. Doing. Let's pick this. I want the needle to be black, so this time it's not transparent. Solid fill, and I want to just pick solid black. This guy needs him to also be transparent. So we go to fill, and we go to solid, and we go to transparent. Okay, doing. Now what do you think? Grab this thing and drop him on here. What happened? Well, I made just the pie part. I also have to make the background part transparent. So here we go. Format chart area, solid fill, transparent, and now all of them are transparent. And now I can grab this guy and kind of eyeball him. I'm not going to spend too much time getting this thing exactly perfectly lined up, but that's pretty doggone close. Okay, let's see if I guess we need to get rid of that little line, don't we? I never even noticed we had a line in there. So format chart area, border, no line, thank you. All right, cool. Now let's just see if this thing works. Let's put in 10. Hey, it pointed to 10. Woohoo! Let's put in a minus 10. Woohoo! It points to minus 10. All right, we're doing pretty good. A couple more things to make this thing look like a real speedometer is I'm going to put a little circle right here in the middle. And this is just visual, okay? There's no real reason for this thing. So I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to go to Shapes, and I'm going to grab the circle. And just like we did when we did the thermometer, I'm going to hold the Shift key down to make this guy exactly transparent. Proportional. And I'm going to kind of eyeball this guy and get him centered in there the best I can. That's close enough. All right. And I'm going to make it the same color as the needle so that you can't tell the needle from the center of the... Now we've made a gauge. Woohoo! It looks just like this except for the dang drop shadow thing. Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.